Hey everyone, welcome to May newsletter for free guitar lessons online. This is Dave Yeager, and for this beginner lesson, this could apply if you're more experienced as well. The number one thing I'm doing in private lessons with my beginner students is essentially I'm teaching them how to use their body with the guitar, how to interact their body with the guitar, the physical parts of playing guitar. Okay, and if you're more experienced, this can also apply. I just recently recovered. Took almost a year. Soft tissue injury in my shoulder. It's extremely painful. I was unable to play my acoustic guitar for most of that time. Grateful I could play my electric, and I had good technique how I held my guitar. But albeit, I do hold my guitar for hours at a time when teaching, and it took me 30 years of playing guitar to develop this repetitive stress injury, but you may be interested to tune into this as well if you're more experienced. Okay, so here we go. Alright, the first thing is I'm going to assume that your guitar is set up properly and it's in tune. The neck is relatively straight. The size of your guitar, it needs to be comfortable for you. Okay, this is a full-sized guitar. Some people call it dreadnought style, but there are also half-size guitars and three-quarter size guitars available, not only for children, but for anybody who feels that that size guitar suits them better. Then you can also, if you're having trouble in the beginning, you're a beginner, I've mentioned this before, you can use a capo. That's just a clamp that you clamp on to one of the frets of your guitars, and it just makes the guitar shorter. So it may be a little bit easier. And also, if you're still having trouble pressing down on the strings, there's a brand of strings called Silk and Steel. And they're pretty soft. A lot of people really like them. They may help as well. Okay? Alright. I'm going to assume that you're sitting down when you're playing. Of course, you can play guitar standing up. The same principles apply. The first thing is you'll want the headstock, this part of the guitar, to be somewhere around your shoulder height. You don't want to be way up here or way down there if you're standing, okay? Now with sitting, same idea, but you want your thighs to be fairly parallel to the floor, okay? You don't want your guitar to be sliding down your leg like that. And also, when you're playing, you just need to be able to see your fretboard a little bit, and you've also got markers along here to help. So you just need to angle your guitar back a little bit. You don't need it to be like this, because then you can't grab onto things as easily, okay? Fairly straight up and down, but back a little bit so you can see. Alright? Okay, next point. There are two ways you can hold your guitar when you're seated, and the way I do it right now, especially because of my shoulder, just recovering, is that I wear it on the same, or I put my guitar on the same leg that I use to fret the guitar. For me, that's my right hand and my right leg. For you, it's probably your left hand and your left leg. Now, if you do this, it's resting on your thigh. You're going to need something to, I use this yoga block to raise my foot up a few inches off the floor. So I just rest my foot on that. You can get guitar footrest stands that are specifically made to rest your foot on. You can use a phone book, you can use a 2x4, I've used things like that, brick, anything to raise your foot up. Okay, now the other way to play guitar, and this is, side note, this is the way I played for many years, and I think it's part of what may have contributed to my past shoulder injury, is this way. Both my feet are flat on the floor. I'm wearing it on the opposite leg that I used to fret with. But you can see I've got it cradled under my strumming arm, and it's forward at almost a 45-degree angle or so from my body, okay? And you notice it's also basically parallel. The neck is even to the floor, parallel to the floor, so it's 45 degrees this way and pretty much straight across on this plane that way, okay? And again, I've got it angled back a bit so I can see the fretboard. And this way is a pretty good way to play too. But like I said, for me, it created soft tissue injury after 30 years and many days playing an hour hours at a time, dealing with students as well, etc. So just to be aware of that, but if you feel comfortable with this way, it's a great way. It's served me for many years. Okay? Alright, so now we're into the nitty gritty of gripping things on the guitar. Now, the first thing is your wrist should be fairly straight because that's the tendons pass through your wrist when you're fretting. So if you're too bent like this, you can't really use the tendons very well. So, and also it leads to, again, injuries and such. So you can see I'm fairly straight. You don't have to be rigid. You should be flexible because your wrist is flexible. Move in combinations of this way, rotating as if it was a doorknob, this way as if you're kind of curling your hand upwards, and even this way a little bit. So it can rotate right around. So every chord has a slightly different angle or wrist position you're going to have to find because it's your body. Now, just use these as guidelines. Keep your wrist fairly straight. With the basic chords, if your hand's really small, you may not be able to do this, but if you've got larger hands, you can cradle the guitar right here at the back and have your thumb over top for these basic chords. If not, you'll need to do the other position, which I'll discuss in a second. But the main thing is with keeping your wrist relatively straight or in the position that it needs to be for that chord. Notice my wrist changes with each chord as I grab it. Is that you need an even distribution of weight on your fingers where you're pushing down. That's the main thing. You need an even, this finger is pushing down the same weight or pressure as this one. It's fairly even, and that'll show you where you need to put your wrist, okay? The other thing is you want your elbow more tucked into your body, but of course you're going to have to bend it out for certain chords a little bit. You know, if you're starting to fly away like this, you know you're doing something wrong, okay? Alright, that's the guideline as far as that goes. Now, the other position of the hand, I'll just show you from the back. Some people, the way I was before, I was curled like this. Now you can see my wrist changing for the various chords. See how it slightly changes angles? So you'll need to find, again, what works for you. Now the other position of the hand, people with smaller hands and people with larger hands too, when you go to bar chords or play scales and things like arpeggios that involve your pinky, if you're playing electric guitar, you'll need to at times move your thumb back down as if there was a line halfway down the neck, like the equator, and your thumb is, the pad of your thumb is around there. Now, I've seen people go like this, students start off going like this, or they go like this, or they put their thumb over here. No, you want it to be like this. Now, again, I'm at an angle. I'm not straight up and down, pointing to the ceiling. I'm at about a 45-ish degree angle, and that's how it looks. The guitar neck's in there, so you can squeeze. You can also spread your fingers apart when your thumb is down, as opposed to when it's up. You can't really spread your fingers apart, which is why it's good for when you go to use your pinky on scales, as well as people who have smaller hands. They can grip the chords like that. Okay? I hope that was helpful. It's kind of the trickiest and in some ways the most important thing to learn on the guitar and the most difficult thing to teach, because it's your body and how you grip things, how you grab things. Once you start to learn how to manipulate your hands and your body to work with your guitar on in different angles and different situations, you'll really be on your way. The rest, scales and theory and all that stuff, is really a piece of cake once you can physically play your guitar. Alright, so this is Dave, freeguitarlessonsonline.com. Thanks for subscribing to the newsletter, and have a great month.